What's up, everybody? My name is Joe Brown. This is Heresy Financial, and today we are talking about the Turkish lira. Turkey, they have been intervening in their currency market recently, changing interest rates, and their currency has been crashing as a result. Their inflation has also been skyrocketing as a result. And so today we are going to be talking about what is going on in Turkey because they're in trouble. Ready? Let's dive in. All right, let's take a look at this article from Reuters. Turkey's currency crisis deepens after the latest rate cut here, and we can see that it caused their currency to plunge 8%. Now, that 8% is versus the dollar. So if we take a look, right here we go, we can see that their currency has not been performing very well recently. It has just been crashing. And yes, this has been going on for a very long time. Now, this chart right here, this is the Turkish lira denominated in US dollars. We can flip this around. We can see the US dollar denominated in Turkish lira. We can see that it reached a high of about 17. You needed 17 lira to purchase one United States dollar here. And so the more the currency depreciates, when you flip it around, you can see the more of the units of that currency it takes to get something that you want. Let's say the US dollar. Now, why would you want the US dollar? Well, because most world trade is done in US dollars. That means that their exports are getting more expensive. It's becoming harder and harder to get their hands on stuff that they need because nobody else wants a lira because they can see what's going on with it. And so in order to get other stuff from other countries, they first need to get dollars, and it is taking a lot of lira now to get their hands on dollars. Now, they have been doing some intervention to try and stop the collapse of their currency here. They did some dollar trimming. So they were selling dollars against the lira to try and stop the decline, but it's still lost 55% of its value this year and 37% just in the last 30 days. So this is something that is spiraling out of control very quickly, in which case, when something like this is happening, you would expect the central bank, the people in power, to come in and at least look like they're attempting to do something to stop it. But despite the loss of purchasing power that's happening to their currency, they've cut the interest rates by 500 basis points. That's 5%. And 1% of that was just on Thursday, just a couple of days ago, depending on when you're watching this. That has made their inflation go to 21%, and that's yearly. So for comparison, if you were going to label it hyperinflation, that's 50% per month. They're at 20% per year right now. So they're not close to something like Lebanon, Venezuela, Argentina, Zimbabwe, anything like that soon. But they're headed there, and it's possible that they get there pretty quickly, especially with expectations that next year they're going to get above 30% because, again, for import prices, if you want to be able to import stuff, I think earlier I accidentally said export. I was talking about imports. If you want to be able to buy stuff from other countries, you need to get your hands on the currency that those countries are selling their stuff in. A lot of that is dollars, and so makes it harder and harder to get. Now let's look at the minimum wage. Where do they talk about the minimum wage here? Okay, so the minimum wage was hiked by 50%. So that is about 275 US dollars per month. For next year. Now, keep in mind, look at this comparison here. It's 4,250 lira. That right now equals 275 US dollars. But last year, the minimum wage was 380 US dollars. So when you adjust for purchasing power, in which case you're adjusting it based on a currency that hasn't devalued as quickly, you can see that even with an increase in the minimum wage, the purchasing power still went down from $380 to $275. Even though that 4,250 lira number is a 50% hike in the number of lira people are getting. It's lost so much of its purchasing power that you're actually ending up with less purchasing power than you had before when measured in dollars. Now, George Gammon did a video on this. He live streamed it on Friday morning about what's going on in Turkey right now, and he made a very good distinction that when you measure a currency versus another currency, all you're getting there is the comparison of the two currencies. Sometimes that's similar to what inflation is, but when you really want to know what inflation is, all you have to do is measure the currency versus the stuff that you're trying to buy. And so when we look at the stock market in Turkey, you can see here it's done fairly well against its own currency, right? Their stock market has gone up. Now, obviously, when you have something like this happen where it drops over 8% in one day and triggers circuit breakers, that's not a good sign. But this is an example of a hedge against a currency. Now, what about purchasing power? Has it kept up its complete purchasing power? I don't think so. But the fact that it's gone up measured in its currency means that it's done better than the cash has, right? So it's at least a little bit of a hedge against inflation. Another way to look at this is if we go to the S&P 500, we look at what it did during from the year 1960 through the year 1980. That was obviously a very inflationary time for the United States. And let's zoom out here a little bit. Each one of these candles is 1 month. We can see here 1960 starts right in here, and then 1980 ends right over here. So during this time frame, obviously the stock market went up. That means that it would have been better for you to invest in the stock market than it would have been to just hold dollars. Right? Now, adjusted for inflation, you lost a ton of purchasing power here, right? You did better, though, than holding on to straight cash. So that's the point. The point is that nominally it'll go up. That means you're at least having a little bit of a hedge against inflation. In real terms, it still might go down, but at least it's not going down as much as the actual currency is, as the cash is losing its purchasing power. Now take a look with me at this tweet from Peter Schiff earlier today. He's talking about what's going on in Turkey right now. They've got 21.3% inflation, and with a 14% interest rate, that means real yields are negative 7.3%. That means that even though you're getting 14%, you're losing so much more on top of what you're getting in terms of purchasing power. You're losing 7.3%. And he makes a point that the same thing is happening in the United States, depending on what inflation numbers you use. But in any case, what you're looking at here is where you have the central bank running up against the problem of not being able to afford things. And so you print money to buy the things you can't afford. And the people who are in charge many times don't realize that you're not actually getting more purchasing power. You're just slowly draining away and sucking away and extracting whatever small amount of purchasing power is left in the system. And the more people become aware of that, the more they want to dump the currency. That increases the problem because you have everybody dumping the currency in exchange for anything that they can get. That makes prices continue to spiral out of control. People start to store their wealth in other forms of money. Buy Bitcoin, buy gold, buy other currencies, whatever they can get their hands on, and then you have something like this come into effect. You have capital controls. The possibility of capital controls could be on the rise. It's not a baseline, but it would be used as a measure of last resort. And usually in these sort of situations, that ends up happening. It's a last resort, but they end up having to do it because the only thing that they can do to try and stop the collapse at the very, very last step is to just stop people from being able to move their money out and do other things with it and take their wealth out and protect themselves, because they have abused their power. They have inflated the currency away. They have tried to buy things that they can't afford. They've been fiscally irresponsible. And as a result, the people who are the victims of this, they try and escape with whatever little wealth they have left. And so they enable capital controls to stop people from doing that so that everybody has to bear the consequences of the incompetent leadership. And the only reason so far that the United States is not in the same boat is because we have the advantage of so many more people around the world using the currency that because it's the US dollar is the global reserve currency, that there's a lot more of a cushion, a lot more of a buffer to absorb the printing, absorb that easy monetary policy around the world. But again, that can't last forever. You get into a spot where things start to crash, things start to collapse, and then you ease again and more money printing. And eventually people start to dump the currency. And when the rest of the world starts to dump the US dollar, I don't know if it happens next year, if it happens in 5 years or 10 years. It's a matter of when, not a matter of if. The only people left in the world who will be required to keep on using the dollar are the people who by law have to do that, which will be under the jurisdiction of the United States, and all those dollars will flood back home. So it's a cautionary tale because everybody in Turkey right now, they're at a point now where their wages, their savings, basically being wiped out. And if you didn't already have some of your wealth, some of your savings, some of your portfolio outside of the country in other forms of money, in other forms of storage of wealth that was outside of their banking system. So if they enable capital controls, doesn't matter. You've already got Bitcoin in cold storage. You've already got gold stored in a private vault in another country. You've already got real estate somewhere else. You've already got some things just in case something happens. That way you're set and you don't have to just hope that the people in power decide to change their mind and start being responsible. You don't have to, as Lex Luthor said in Man of Steel or Batman vs. Superman, rely upon the kindness of monsters. As always, really appreciate you guys. Thank you for watching.